Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for this great conversation. My name is Moses Kemibaro. I'm a member of the Rotary Club of Karen. This is the very first of a series that we're calling the Rotarians of Karen, a series of podcasts. We'll be interviewing and having interesting conversations about Rotary and specifically looking at our membership at the Rotary Club of Karen. Today, I'm delighted to have as our guest our current district governor-elect for the Rotary District 9212, Leonard Ithau, who's been a Rotarian at our club, I think, for the last 6 or 7 years. Also, as a small point, DGE Leonard is the person who got me into the Rotary Club of Karen. So I'm delighted to have him as our first guest as well. So karibu sana, Leonard.
Thank you so much, Moses, for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
So, as one of our most illustrious members at the Rotary Club of Karen, and of course the incoming district governor for our district, the first question I'd like to ask you, Leonard, is maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, your personal, your professional background. Who are you? Where are you coming from? And then we'll get into some of the other questions around Rotary.
Thank you. Well, Moses, it's really very simple. I'm 62 now this year, and I've lived, I think, a normal life. I grew up in the Woodley area of Nairobi, and I went to school at Kilimani Primary School, high school Lenana, University of Nairobi. I decided to study engineering, and you know how engineering courses go and engineering work. So I've been involved in construction and projects all over the region for the last 37 years. It's been very interesting. I'm married and have 2 daughters, Winnie and McKenna, and my wife, Patricia.
Great.
So that's me in a nutshell.
Great. When you think about Rotary, and I think maybe I'd like to understand the inception or the time you came to Rotary, how you became aware of Rotary, how you were brought into our club, and more importantly, how that journey has been going so far.
Well, I believe that at a stage in our lives, and it comes to us differently, we have that recognition that the reach that we have is much more than ourselves, our families, our immediate associates, and so on. And for other people, that realization comes much earlier. For me, it came at 50. And I realized my kids were going to school, and it looks like they were going to finish. And all these things and challenges of life that you thought were insurmountable. And I realized I still have a lot of energy. And I felt that rather than being a helpless observer to what's going on around me, that I could spend the same energy that I'd spent in growing my business, in growing my family. I could apply that energy to others, people in need and people who I don't know.
And tell us about your time in the Rotary Club of Karen since you joined, the various roles you've served, maybe until this point, in terms of that journey so far.
I joined in 2014, I believe it was in July, and I really intended to take a back seat and see how the club is run before I get actively involved, because we always have this fear that this might consume me to the detriment of my other activities. Now, on the night that I was inducted, I was actually appointed to the board of the club.
Immediately?
The same night. And I didn't sleep very well that night.
Oh, wow.
And I was made responsible for the weekly speaker engagements that we have. And I had no idea how that was done. So I was flushed out day one. And I thought about it. I felt like quitting.
You've been ambushed.
I decided that, I offered to serve. And unfortunately, I didn't say how. I didn't say what particular roles I'd be prepared or not prepared to do. So I said, no, this is it. And I gave it a try. And slowly it became more interesting. It became a challenge, different from the engineering and construction that I'm used to. and it was enjoyable. And so I found myself getting involved in the different opportunities that Rotary affords, not only being of service to the communities, but making friends, taking up challenging leadership roles that can develop you and grow you, so that it ends up being a situation in which you give, but you also receive. And that has been my experience. And every year in Rotary, I've found that I have a bigger and better challenge coming towards me. It's always very new. It's always a challenge, but such a joy when you make achievements, because those achievements really impact a lot of people. You try and be an inspiration so that you can get others to join you and get more people on board, because more people on board means greater impact.
Could you tell us a little bit more about your time as the president in our club? Because I think you joined fairly, as you put, fairly recently in a sort of a Rotary tenure. And then almost immediately again, you were in the role of the president of the club. Maybe you can tell us a bit about how that happened, because it feels to me, and somebody who's been a Rotaractor, as you know, I've been, I used to be the Rotaract Club of Bahari Mombasa president. So I remember wondering, wow, Leonard is going very quickly. How did that happen? Maybe you can share a little bit about that, because you served as president.
It was total shock. The first year I was speaker secretary to the club. Second year I was treasurer. And what happened is that the president to follow decided to relocate and start up a new club. So we had a vacancy. And the board of the club then decided, because they had to make a quick decision, that I would take up that role.
Of course, with your consent.
Yes, but I mean, as I said, you're there to serve.
Yeah.
And then it's difficult then to say no, to be selective. And I wasn't selective the first time. So I said, I'll take this one up. So the third year I was president. And boy, was it a year. It was a year of learning, but it was a year of so much engagement with the club members, growing the membership, the projects that we got into. If you recall, in that year is when we got into the 5-year Oxford University Press project. And we got in so many activities with our neighbors. We got into an arrangement with Carrefour for the donation of foods to various homes around. We did projects with the Karen police station.
I remember that too,
the
yes.
Karen Technical Training Institute for the Deaf, and so many other activities that came forward. And it gave me an opportunity to practice the project management skills that I had gained over the last 30 or so years, to apply it now into small projects and deliver good results with a lot of impact that we see even today in our club, in our relationship with the community. And also because Rotary is an aggregation of many clubs. In our district, as you know, we have over 100, close to 140 clubs, close to 4,000 members. So while we are semi-autonomous, we're part of a larger organization. And so what we do influences and impacts what other clubs are doing. So if we are able to set a good example, then we're able to engage and challenge them to do similarly. So Rotary has given me the opportunity to not engage only the 100 members in our club, but to use that stage to influence the 4,000 members in our district, to influence what is going on in the zone or the global Rotary fraternity. So what started with just a membership of a single club has grown up into a big possibility, a possibility I couldn't envisage when I joined. And this is available to everyone who joins Rotary, both at the earlier levels, Interact, Rotaract, and Rotary, an ability to really expand the scope of your impact to levels that you didn't think are possible, and actually set about by you yourself in terms of the time, the energy, and commitment that you're able to do. Now you'll ask me, okay, is Rotary a full-time job? No, it's not. I still have my normal commitments that I do in terms of business, in terms of home, and other responsibilities that we all have. And I give them all of them their due time and energy. And just like the way you can start a walking program, you start by walking a kilometer, and it's a bit difficult the first time. And then the next day you can try and you can do 1.1 kilometers and so on. So you find that you gain the energy and the time and the bandwidth to be able to do everything that you need to do.
Yeah. I know there's a famous saying that circulates in the Rotary circles. We say that Rotary is for busy people. And I know whether that sounds a bit odd, but you'd imagine quite often that sometimes the kind of membership we attract are people who are really busy and involved in business, in various positions, in various types of jobs and endeavors. But I think it's interesting because one of the things I think you've highlighted is that you always had an attitude of saying yes. Even when you're presented with something uncertain or unclear, I think one of the virtues of a good Rotarian is that ability to say yes and then figure out the details later. Would you say?
Yes. In Rotary, we have that saying of throwing under the bus. And it's the place I found that you have to be ready at any time to be called upon to speak or to respond to something in front of strangers,
yes,
and so on. Or you be called upon and in a group to do some community service, and then you have to just jump into it. So you get that a reduction in your resistance to trying new things. You become more open, more available to do things. And it then translates slowly into the other spheres of your life.
Correct.
Yes, that rigidity, and because we're creatures of habit, to try and change that habit, to try and to go into spheres of where you have not been before.
I think I had a fairly similar experience to you when I became a Rotaractor, and I think year 2, I was given the mantle of president of my Rotary Club at the Bahari, Mombasa. And one of the things I recall is that I was very shy. I couldn't do public speaking. I didn't know how to do it. And because you're thrust into this moment, you just have to assimilate and function. But I always tell people one of the perks of Rotary is that as you plan projects and you put together activities for the year, you learn how to deal with people, you learn how to hold meetings, you learn how to take minutes, you learn how to plan budgets. So these become actually life skills, wouldn't you say, over time?
Yes, exactly. Because you're working together with volunteers, there's no hierarchy and no authority structure. So you have to start building on the softer skills, your emotional intelligence, your ability to persuade, to motivate, to encourage people to do what they need to do. And in today's world, that's the way we want to do things, to energize the team so that they themselves pick up the strategy and move on with it on their own. So these skills that we learn within this environment are useful everywhere. And you find that those who are growing in leadership within Rotary seem to be similarly growing their leadership abilities and skills and progress in the other spheres of their lives.
And the professions. And
yes,
all
in
this.
everything.
Yeah. So probably one of the areas of, I think, conversation today, I think is very interesting, is trying to understand what the ingredients are to have a successful Rotary Club. What are the things that make a Rotary Club, truly successful? And then within that, I think I would want to ask, maybe if somebody is looking to become a part of Rotary Club, or maybe the members of Rotary are looking to acquire or bring in more members, what are the qualities they need to look at when they're thinking about membership?
Okay. If you remember, I said each club is semi-autonomous, but they subscribe to a similar constitution and bylaws, etc. It's important that each club is matched well to its environment and its community, because the idea is that the right people coming together in a certain place in order to serve a certain need, and they have to correlate to each other. You need to get the right people who have it in their minds that they want to do more, and they want to do more in a structured way that allows them to use their skills or vocation, and they apply it to the community needs. So there has to be the right people in one location who are committed to resolve certain issues, and they ensure that they do enough research to examine what the community needs are, and that they're able to match it. These people have to gel together. Rotary clubs are clubs by invitation only. So it's incumbent upon those who are forming it to invite like-minded people, but have an appropriate mix that makes for a healthy, energetic, innovative team that, apart from the community service, are willing to become friends, are willing to, if possible, do business together, and also to learn and grow together. So having those ingredients, and then making sure that there are sufficient activities that are going on that challenges the members who have come, because you wouldn't want to go to a place and all you're doing is looking at each other week in and week out. That you have an exciting program for the year. And in Rotary, we have a very good system for strategic planning for 3 to 5 years, and then the annual planning, so that everybody knows what they need to do for that particular time and year, and what they expect to realize in the impact for themselves, the community, and so on. So that agreement of right people, right intention, and a connection to the community, and then ensuring you have enough engagement for those people is really the ingredients of a successful club, in my view.
So obviously, as a club, we're very excited about the role you've adopted. I think it's also quite amazing that, as you mentioned, in a district with over 100 Rotary clubs, we have the privilege or the legacy of having 2 past district governors, and now you'll be our 3rd. So obviously, it almost feels like we're doing something right. But going forward, in terms of, maybe you can share with us a little bit about the journey to becoming a district governor elect, and of course, 2023, 2024, you'll be serving as the district governor for our district. Maybe you can tell us a little bit more about how that happened, and what maybe we can hope to expect from you, because the legacy is so rich and established, and now we have you coming in as well. Maybe you can share with us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm thankful that I joined the Rotary Club of Karen. I think that in itself afforded me the right exposure, the right responsibility, the right challenge that enabled me to be recognized outside of our immediate club circles. And what happened was I was nominated as an assistant governor after my presidency, and that allowed me to be responsible for 4 clubs. And these 4 clubs I visited on a regular basis. And then you start having different perspectives and insights on how clubs are run. And I was fortunate to be appointed a second time, so I do that for 2 years. Now, the real change or insight that I got into Rotary was when I was appointed after that second year as the chair of the new executive committee by past district governor Joe Otin. And that gave me a whole different dimension and view of how the Rotary at a larger scale is run, and how the policies and decisions we make can impact on the vibrancy and the growth, and also on the impact of our activities. And it's a role that I did for 3 years. And in those 3 years, we made significant changes on the structure and the way our district is run and the clubs are run, in terms of our strategy, in terms of the way we work ourselves, continuity, introducing a corporate identity to the club movement. So I believe that has very well prepared me for the role that I'll be stepping into next July, to continue on the good work of our current district governor, Azeb Asrat in Ethiopia, and our immediate past district governor, Alex Nyaga, and so on. So we are working jointly together with past leaders, present and future, in order to deliver a continuing and growing Rotary presence in the region.
Excellent. I love the way also, I think at the district level, because I had the privilege of being in the EXCO at some point for the district, and the way there's this preparation. I think they call it not the triad, but
Troika.
the troika, correct?
Yes.
That's the right word. And the way that there's this succession and planning so that
Yes.
there's a strong sense of continuity and a sort of a purposeful approach that goes beyond the current DG and looking towards the future as well. So I think that really sets you in the right path to continue what the other governors have been doing, and also, of course, setting up for the next. When you look at Rotary, I think across the district and across Africa, the club level, global level, what do you see as some of the challenges and opportunities for Rotary as an organization? How do we maintain our relevance? How do we continue to add value to our communities and society at large?
I think the challenges that we face one's around the cost of being a Rotarian, to the availability of information and training, so that a Rotarian who joins feels properly educated, properly trained, so that they can properly carry out their activities within Rotary. So a lot of investment is required to ensure that, one, that the Rotarians we have are fully engaged and trained, and two, that we try not to make the cost and experience of being a Rotarian to be prohibitive in these challenging times. Having said that, the opportunities that we have are really limitless, because the numbers in Africa show significant possibility for growth. We have the numbers for that, and numbers that are really dedicated to making a change in their communities. So if we can leverage that and then improve our resource gathering activities, so that we have the intent, we have the people, and then we have the resources to bring together and deliver the needs for the communities, I see the significant opportunity for us to really make significant and meaningful change.
There's been almost like a sticky, can I call it, misconception, from the earliest days when I was involved in Rotary, personally over 20 years ago, that, Rotary maybe is only for the successful members of society. And I think sometimes what that does is it unfortunately makes people shy to come through if they feel they don't fit, or They're not, in the right place. Although as you visit more clubs, as I've done over the years, you start to see each club has its own culture, its own style. Some are considered to be a bit more formal, some are a bit more informal. But how do we work through some of those challenges of, perception and, what people think it is and what it actually is, and sort of move, in that way, and therefore address the issue of growing membership and involvement?
I think it's important that we do things like what we're doing now in terms of communicating, being open in terms of what being a Rotarian entails, that really it is open for everyone. The requirement for a member to be one is the same. And in none of those requirements does it include any economic prerequisites. It doesn't have any social prerequisites. And so, really, apart from what would be expected for any administration of any formal entity, a club, apart from the subscription fees, which are reasonable, really there's not much other cost apart from bringing yourself, becoming part of this group, and then figuring out how best to use the different skills, because everybody has a skill to bring to the table. Everybody. And if we can marshal it together carefully and then use that to impact communities, impact doesn't necessarily have to have a monetary requirement to it. You can exchange skills that you have with the communities that will make a big difference. So it's really not around resources, but resources are needed for particular interventions that require purchase of materials or some kind of material input.
One of the things, and maybe tying back to that, is, you know, as somebody who was an interactor myself, and I remember looking up to Rotarians, sometimes I almost felt like they were giants. There was people who are such significant members of society that you feel so small. But as a Rotaractor and obviously interactors who are more of the Rotarians who are in high school and so forth, there's a big opportunity. I see that we sort of seem to find a challenge of converting Rotaractors to become Rotarians. And I remember for me, I think between the time I was a Rotaractor to Rotarian was, I think, many, many years. It could be as many as 20 or something. And I remember wondering, why didn't I switch? Why didn't I move on? But I think partly sometimes one feels maybe an imposter syndrome, perhaps. That maybe sometimes it's a club where this is within proximity. What are the ways you think that we can ensure that there's that good conversion rate between interactors, Rotaractors, and then eventually feeding into becoming Rotarians? Because of course they understand the ethos, they're part of it, they've been there, they understand what we do. But there seems to be, I feel sometimes, a big drop off. And something that, again, of course, the young are the future. What are the ways you think we could possibly improve that conversion ratio between, being a Rotaractor and becoming, let's say, a Rotarian long term?
I think it's important that we stop having that disconnect between the two. And I believe that process is ongoing now, that to be a Rotaractor or being a Rotarian is to be a Rotarian. So
I like that.
yes. So and I think from January they will be part of the subscription base. So really, being a Rotaractor is equivalent to being a Rotarian. Now, having said that, remember the tall people who you see ahead of you were once young boys and girls like yourselves. What has happened between them then and now is that they've experienced life. Being a Rotarian, they're open and available for you to ask them, how was your journey? How did you do it? Please explain to me. And for sure, a Rotarian will explain to you his journey, his pitfalls, the successes, and what advice would they give to a younger self. So we need to bring together these Rotarians of example. together with the Rotaractors, and let them engage so that you start seeing the benefit and the connection of reaching out to those who are ahead of you and having that mentorship that will now give you the challenge and the energy to now let me continue this because I have this opportunity for mentorship to learn and also grow myself without having to go through the long cut that these people had to in earlier times.
Absolutely. I think reaching up to understand.
Reaching up, that availability, because that access to a lot of these people would not happen otherwise. You wouldn't be able to go up to their offices through the guards and everything and meet them. Yet here they are at the Rotary meeting, available for you to talk to and to ask, how did you deal with certain issues that I'm dealing with now?
I think also when I think about the fraternity of Rotary, in the sense that, the membership, the people, when I think back to both my Rotary and my Rotaract days, clearly one of the fringe benefits is things that happen in between, things you learn, people you get to know. Sometimes business happens, sometimes a door is opened that was closed. And I think, indirectly, because people are people and people are about relationships, I think people should also look at some of the, I suppose, the benefits that come with membership in terms of even just friendships that you build over the years, isn't it?
Yes, it does. I mean, look at it this way. For me personally, I joined a club with, it must have been close to 30 members. And now, through the years of being a Rotarian and engaging with other clubs and so on, I have close to 4,000 friends and people I can consult. I don't think any other framework will allow you to grow that big. So I have friends, I have business acquaintances, and so on that would not have happened. And outside my immediate sphere of work in technical and construction, now I have everything. I have doctors, I have all types of vocations who are now friends and so on. So it really widens your network, if I put it that way.
Yeah, and I think you also bring out another aspect of Rotary that I love. I think we call it the fellowship.
Yes.
The camaraderie that is delivered or achieved by being together, working on a project. Like this past weekend when we went for the hike in the Ololua Forest as a club. And there's something about that camaraderie that's just incredible, that just doing things together, doing service, doing projects, there's just a camaraderie there that's fantastic.
No, it is. And Rotary has three things, the opportunities that it affords you. One is the opportunity for fellowship, the opportunity for friendship, and the opportunity to serve our communities. Those three ingredients come through membership of Rotary.
I think another thing that I want to talk about is the Rotary Foundation. I think very few people fully appreciate just how significant it is, and the fact that usually the Rotary membership, through our contributions, provide the finances that then go to the foundation, which in turn basically acts as a resource to fund and support projects that usually have very significant impact for society at large. Maybe you can share some thoughts and some insights around the foundation, how we work with it, through it, how we contribute to it. Maybe talk a little bit about the Paul Harris Fellows.
Yes.
But maybe we can talk a bit about the foundation, how significant it is for Rotary.
The Rotary Foundation is the financing arm of Rotary International. It is a fund that is valued over $1 billion. And I believe it was started in 1915, if I'm not wrong, by a Rotarian called Arch Clump. And he started the foundation with $27.50. And I believe the first project was a toilet facility in Chicago. So since then, it has grown to that value. Where does the money come from? The money comes from donations that are made by Rotarians, by corporates and other people that is put together and invested, and then the returns from that is what is given for the work that we do in serving the communities. And we have a system of acknowledgement or reward for those who make those donations. For example, if you give $1,000 over time, not necessarily at one go, we award such a person with a pin, and we call it Paul Harris Fellow. Paul Harris was the founder of Rotary. And if you make 2,000 and so on, we have a level system that provides for that. So we as Rotarians donate in small, medium, large amounts to this foundation. And then we similarly use the funds from that to carry out projects, and we call them global grants. And currently, our district comprises Kenya, Ethiopia, South Sudan, and Eritrea. We currently have over $11 million.
$11 million.
$11 million in projects that are going on
Wow.
currently. And by the way, this is like year on year, because our projects tend not to be really long in terms of the duration. So we have so much investment that's going on, being done by Rotarians within the district, by the clubs, and you can see the impact that those resources are having in our communities, and the skills and the uplearning that Rotarians are having through having to manage these projects from inception to completion.
And again, these become life skills, right? So somebody can apply this to their church, to their maybe family fundraising
everywhere
for things.
So
it becomes a life thing.
It's
right?
fully transferable.
Absolutely. What are some of the things that you would consider to advise anyone who may be considering becoming a Rotarian? What are some of the things that come to mind for you?
I think it's important that you join a club that meets your lifestyle, that meets the profile that you would be comfortable in spending your time with. People that are similarly decided that they want to either engage in specific areas of community service or to achieve specific aims. Because once you have that synergy, it tends to work very well. And then coming together and then getting those ingredients that I talked about earlier right, in terms of the people, in terms of the need and the community.
I think one of the things I'd take away also with that is probably as a Rotarian, because sometimes we have the ebb and flow. You might get busy at work, you might miss meetings and activities. I think I've heard it said in a few meetings before, just come. Just if you're busy or you've got work to do, just come for those 2 hours, come for that 1 hour, because somehow I find that when you leave that meeting, you feel good. Would you agree?
You feel good, and you tend to forget the issues that have been bothering you the whole day, because you start thinking about that you're part of a bigger thing that is going on, that the issues that you may have personally, in comparison to those carried by others, it seems rather small at that time.
Yeah.
And so it gives you, I think, a better perspective of your place in the world. And generally meeting friends who have no expectations of you. You're just there.
Exactly.
Yes, and so that you're able to share. And as I said, you have like-minded people who you're meeting. I think it really makes a good difference to anybody.
Where do you see Rotary going in the next 2 to 5 years, locally, globally, maybe more specifically in Africa? Where do you think we're going to be in the next 2 to 5 years?
The next 25 years, I think the axis of being in these type of organizations will shift towards Africa, and Asia. And I think we will be the leaders in terms of people who are called to actions to do things within their communities to uplift the life of those around them in need. And so I see the focus shifting away from the rest of the world towards Africa and Asia. And so I see us taking a lead in being the ones who are uh, influencing the investment decisions of the foundation, that we will be at significant leadership situations within the structure of the organization. And therefore, I think the impact that will be delivered will be more meaningful and have more depth than it has currently. So I'm very optimistic for the next 5, 10, 25 years. And I look forward, and it is youth like yourself and those who will follow you
Yes.
who will be the inheritors of all this. And so the work we do now, it's very important that we do it as well we can, and that we put in place the right foundation and structures to make it possible at that time.
During your time in Rotary, are there any key life lessons or even, lessons that are Rotary specific that you might want to share with us?
What I've found is that Rotary gives me a wider spectrum of vision. In my normal life and activities, the spectrum is rather narrow. So your view of life really widens. That's one. Two, that your level of empathy towards others increases.
Especially in the projects.
Yes, dramatically, because you come to face with the reality of a lot of people in this world, and you realize that the issues and the things you may be carrying bordering on the petty side of things. So, and it gives you at the same time the satisfaction that you made the decision to try and first of all see and open your eyes to what is there around you in the world, and then finally to make a decision to try and do something about it.
Yeah, for sure. I think Rotary exposes you to possibly aspects of the world around you that you never would encounter. And then you realize the need for the foundation, the need for projects that are going to uplift people in various ways. I think when I think back to our club, I remember the project at the current police station where we put a library. I think we did something in Kuinda as well. And just watching those kids spending time in there and enjoying that privilege to have books, which we may take for granted, I think is quite special. So Rotary does create a lot of opportunities for people, I think, in that way. What have been some of your special memories of being a Rotarian in our club, of course, and then, of course, the district? Any things that come to mind? Maybe you can even tell us where you were last night. I had to bring that up.
Yes, I know. Okay. My special moments in Rotary Club of Karen was one when we went to donate books at the Nkaimurunya Primary School.
I remember that.
And I was called upon to say a few words and everything, and the kids were all moving and laughing, and they were so happy. And I remember a picture that I took. I think it was taken by First Lady Margaret with me amongst the kids laughing.
Nice.
And I remember I felt like a kid again in primary. And, those are special moments that you think would never repeat themselves. So I really felt like a young boy in school again. The second one was when I got a call from the Oxford University Press, and they told me that rather than the 3,000 books that they had offered to give us, that they were instead going to give us 50,000
Wow.
books.
More than
And yes,
tenfold.
and can we handle that?
Wow. Is that the time
So-
we came to your house and we were
yes,
packing
yes,
books? I
yes,
remember.
yes, yes. And
Yes.
they brought a container full of a 40-foot container full of books. And then the problem was, how are you going to arrange them? How do you distribute them all over the country and then account for them? Because you need to explain where they went. So that challenge was the, I think, the highlight and the excitement of being a Rotarian, really. At the district level, the gift I have received is being welcomed and to meet all these energetic members of clubs all over the district, and they allow you to say a few words to them, and to see that they listen and that you learn something just by meeting them and engaging with them. And I believe that, and I hope that at least I've been able to share one nugget of my experience, and hopefully it's of value or use to them. So I really enjoyed that possibility of meeting to try and share my experiences generally in life and specific to Rotary, and then to inspire all the Rotarians and members that really we've done a lot, but still we can do more.
Great. How does your family feel about your Rotary life? I'm just curious because I remember when I was in a Rotary club, there came a point where I think my boss asked me, "Do you work for us or do you work for Rotary?" So I'm just wondering, what's the dynamic like, in terms of, I'm sure right now you're visiting clubs, you're doing so many things. How's that going?
No, it's going very well. I think everyone's really thrilled with doing this.
Yeah,
They think that I've really found something that I enjoy, and so I get support from everyone at home, actually. So it's all systems go as regards that, and I think it gives you an opportunity to encourage members of your family and your extended family that really we have to think beyond ourselves. And as they are growing up, I hope they'll get the message and don't wait until they're 50 like me to start doing more than what is around them, not specifically through Rotary, but just whatever they choose to do, that it would include those who I need.
great. So, Leonard, my last question to you is, I don't know if you have any parting shots, any insights, anything you'd like to share that you feel our audience would find useful.
Everybody has a contribution that they can make, and we need to afford them that opportunity to be able to do so. Sometimes due to the nature of what I do, I'm not available every week to be called upon to come for meetings or attend projects, but I'm willing to participate in a different way. I think we should adapt to people's needs rather than have a sort of one size fits all solution. That we should adopt and allow people in relation to what they are able to commit to be able to do so, and to be able to be recognized and respected for just doing that. So we need to be open to different club formations, which we're doing now. We have online clubs, we have cause-based clubs, we have interest-based clubs, and so on, that is responding to people's needs and aspirations. And I think we need to look at that and take it a little further so that we can bring on board more people, have more ideas coming in, and that way we're able to innovate, be better, be more efficient, be more impactful.
Great. Thank you so much, Leonard. It's a privilege and a pleasure to have you here as our first guest on the Rotarians of Karen podcast. We're also, of course, cheering you on as a club, looking forward to your tenure as a DG, but of course, as a DGE, you're already doing amazing things. And thank you so very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Moses. Thanks for having me. I've enjoyed it
All right.
very,
Thanks.
very much.
Karibu sana.
Asante.